tell you how that felt. Swift kick from a man can turn into a bad spell. Kick-ass movies and Len really tend to add well. North, Mr. North Star. Pop the judo, chop you right out your car. Kush to the haze, Mr. Always raise the bar. He strives to be great and exceeds it by far. So sit back, relax, we getting dirty like a mud pit. Talking kickboxer and blood fist. If we catch you dozing off, then you gotta go. What you know about Taekwondo? We're here to kick ass. If you with the kung fu, then this.
What's good, y'all? Kush Hayes here, coming to you, episode 5 of the Kick-Ass Movie Podcast, the penultimate podcast of the season. With me, as always, director, master, Len Kabazinski. Len, how you doing, man?
Thanks again for having me on, Kush. Busy summer with filmmaking for me. I got, as anybody that's followed the show knows, I've done Pact of Vengeance with Leo Fong and John Michael Thor and Diamante and Peter Avalon from AEW Wrestling there. So I'm getting ready to film Leo's scenes, and then it's pretty much a wrap. So I got that coming up as we speak pretty much here, and off I go.
Man, it sounds exciting. I can't wait to be a part of it, dude. I'm going to be an extra pair of hands, extra pair of legs. I'm wherever you need me, dude. This is what I do for a living, and I love what I do. So, but yo, man, it is Halloween week. Not only are we in Los Angeles, but it's the spookiest time of the year. And I tried to find a movie that we could talk about that was somewhat spooky, and well, it's got some creepy moments. But what I'm talking about, Donnie Yen, in a movie that has a few different names. It's 2014's Kung Fu Jungle. We know it as Kung Fu Killer, but at once upon a time it was going to be called Last of the Best. And I think that's actually the better name of those three. Do you think people maybe go like, well, we don't want people thinking this is a best of the best sequel? Or did we miss something earlier? Like, do you think that's why they just jumped to these films?
I'm not sure.
These films from the East, man, they either hit the title of the film right on the head, or it's something completely abstract. So Kung Fu Killer, all right, that kind of makes sense. That's the American distribution name, but Kung Fu Jungle, we barely never see any flora or fauna, my man. It's we're nowhere near the jungle at times.
Well, when you talk Kung Fu Killer to somebody like me, immediately I think of the David Carradine film, the Kung Fu Killer, I believe it was called, right? And had a sequel too, I believe, which I find those films pretty entertaining. He did them right after, he came back basically to the main scene with Kill Bill and stuff like that. And I don't know, they might have been made for Spike TV or whatever channel they were made for at the time. But I think those Kung Fu Killer movies are pretty watchable. And I'm a Carradine fan, but yeah, I like those a lot. So when you say Kung Fu Killer to me, that's the first thing I think of is, oh, you've seen the David Carradine film. But no, we're talking about the Donnie Yen film. I don't know what you call it, but right. I think there's a lot of lost in translation titles that, they either nail it, like something like Iron Monkey or something like that, or we have this, and I don't think any of the titles were particularly good. So
when I was looking up these movies, like again, I was just reading synopsises, and this was billed to me as 7 with Kung Fu. And for a brief, there's spices and niblets of it there, but it's not full on 7.
No, I would say no. And the one thing that really stood out to me is, and I believe I mentioned this film many years ago now on my own show, the Forgotten Movie Den that I do for my Patreon and stuff, is I don't know how long ago, but it was definitely years, plural, ago, as I've been doing that show for 4 or 5 years now. But it's a 1991 movie called Tiger Claws, and it stars Bolo Yen, from the Dragon, and lots of movies. Van Damme's Bloodsport. He's Chung Lee or Kong Lee in Bloodsport there. Bolo Yen is the bad guy in it. Cynthia Rothrock is in it. Again, one of her early American lead films in 1991 at that time. So, and then we had Canadian jeweler Jalal Murray, kung fu guy, in the title role. And Tiger Claws is pretty cool. Very Canadian production and stuff like that. Now, you don't have the crazy fight scenes and stuff that we have in the Donnie Yen Kung Fu Killer, but I'll say this, the story's pretty much the same. In the Jalal Murray, Cynthia Rothrock, Bolo Yen vehicle there, Tiger Claws, the villain is a person that's basically a serial killer that is killing masters of martial arts or people that he feels are masters that are disrespecting their martial arts or something like that. So he's going off and Bolo Yen's killing all these people. So he's a bad guy, not a bad guy, but murderer, so still kind of a bad guy kind of thing. He's honorable in his serial killing, I guess, is in his brain. So this story's been done before, as unique as it might have sounded at first. It really is the Tiger Claw storyline kind of thing.
I think someone was just being cute there with the synopsis, and then like, oh, it's just dark and tinted enough. Yeah, you said this hasn't been done before. Do you like the killer? Do you like the fact that this guy was a crippled and just somehow like overcame stuff? Like, does his motivation change as much compared to Bolo Young's?
Yeah, I think his fight scenes and things are good in the film. Though that in this, I think he's a bright spot in that area. I think as an actor, this is. Kung Fu Killer does have some decent acting in it, and I think Donnie Yen, who's not going to win any Academy Awards for acting either, I think he's pretty good in it. So that's definitely in an action film not known, for acting ability. I think the acting's okay in this. It is not a Don the Dragon film, which we've mentioned on this show before, and things like that. I think the acting's quite good. The motivation stuff is a little, maybe a little shaky in this one, I guess, at best.
It seems to change as it goes. At first, he's just trying to be the best, but then, he murders his wife, but she's also like just dying of like stage 12 cancer, and he just snaps at some point. But then, like at one point, he just wants to be the best, but then he's just like, no, I just want to die.
Right.
Will you please kill me, Donnie? I'm going to do anything I can to fuck with you.
It's that the story stuff I think fails the actors in this one kind of thing, not the other way around. So I think in this one you're not going to have that, and I don't think it would try to be. You don't have the Crouching Tiger, photography and stuff. But I think the look of this movie is pretty cool. I don't know what the budget was. I think it was 20-some million or something like that in whatever their currency is. What is China's currency?
Box Office Mojo has given us an estimated 25 US million.
Okay, all right, well, close enough. So I think it's a good looking picture. I think the story to this, what it reminded me of, and I like this movie, don't get me wrong. If we come down to a recommendation, should you watch Donnie Yen's Kung Fu Killer? I would say yes, do it. But it's not going to be, Donnie's really not the star kind of thing. In my opinion, the villain guy is the real star of the movie. Yeah. But Donnie...
That's Bao Kang Wong.
Yeah, I would have never got that right. But I feel he's really your lead star of this movie. Donnie Yen's got what? He's got obviously the big fight at the end, the big fight at the beginning, and I think he's got one other one in the middle somewhere that's kind of not. I won't say pedestrian, but not.
There's a chase on a rooftop that ultimately goes nowhere, but then there's the at the docks. Yeah.
So he's got basically 3 fight bits in the film, kind of thing.
Going back to Bao Kang Wong, I like his look. I like his whole gimmick again. Like he's got one leg shorter than the other, and then like they build up a whole mythology. It's like one of them's stronger than the other too, and it's like you're trying to figure. It's like is it his crippled leg that's the strongest? Like does he just making up I'm fascinated with his costume at times. Like I like the way that they got the lift on his boot, and I'm just like, does this guy really have one leg shorter than? No, it's a gimmick boot. It's a gimmick boot, right? Come on.
I think the photography and stuff, the lighting, all this stuff is a professional, like slick looking production. I think one thing I really liked about it, and one of the reasons I would probably recommend people check it out, is I think the story and how everything kind of lays out really reminds me of like a Shaw Brothers film from the 70s or early 80s there. I think even in some of the fight scenes, we get the opening fight, I guess, with Donnie Yen in the prison kind of thing. And you look at some of the choreography and thing in there, and then you think, oh boy, this is going to be a choppy edit, kind of American style, shaky cam, choppy close-ups fight kind of thing. And I mean, Donnie's got to be in his 50s, I would think, when he filmed this. I mean, it's what, 8 years old now? He's got to be in his 50s at this point. So, and I think the opening fight scene, the prison fight scene, is pretty cool. But it's definitely very American looking in terms of like how they cut it together. And then you think, okay, it's going to go that direction. But then it doesn't. And then the other fights, they look very, Asian cinema stuff. I think we get a couple really long, well choreographed things without a camera cut and things like that. But I think the story and stuff really play out like a Shaw Brothers 70s, early 80s film. And I think that's pretty cool.
This movie seemed to be a love letter, a tribute to Hong Kong and Chinese action cinema. There's a dedicated spot at the end. And at first I'm like, oh no, who died? And then no, we're just like throwing out all these names. At first it's like, oh, it's just a producer. Oh, then there's a choreographer. It just goes on and on, and it starts like reference. Now let's just start referencing the actors in this film. Like there's a blink and you miss it moment in the prison scene where Tony Leung is there. From Marvel's Shang-Chi. There's a lot of cameos that are like, just very weird scenes where it's just a close-up of an old guy and they're like, oh, so you're not eating it? He's like, no, I'm just taking food back to the wife. That's the whole line, but they gave him front row center, and it was like they did that for a reason. Turns out he's a somebody. He's a very special cameo. Bruce Law. Do you remember Bruce Law?
The one guy I recognized from Shaw stuff, he was like cutting meat or something like that in the one scene. He's only in it for a second, but I thought that's so-and-so from it. So I could see when you said it's kind of a love letter to other martial arts stuff. It's in the background on the TV. It wasn't Drunken Master, but one of the Jackie Chan movies were playing on there. At least I don't think it was Drunken Master, but the one guy has a Bruce Lee poster on his wall. There's all these martial art drop-ins from all over the place throughout the movie, really.
Jackie Chan got a shout out. They showed whatever screen reference happened in that scene you just mentioned, but then they tried to do something clever where they just showed the credits of another man's movie and got hit where it says directed by so and so, and they're like, yeah, him too, but we're not gonna spend that 30 cents on the title card here. We get a bunch of fights in this movie. There's at least 5 of them. Which one is your favorite? Now, me personally, I really liked the movie set, but the final climax at the freeway, which is ultimately anticlimactic, was also a very cool setup. But which one did you enjoy?
I think the ending, some of the CGI kind of almost ruined it for me, I guess.
I can see why you say that.
The trucks and stuff like that, because I thought, I don't know. Back in 1985, Jackie Chan wouldn't have filmed it that way. You know what I mean, kind of thing. So I'm not saying it ruins the movie, but it's, I'm going to have to
think that maybe they're just bringing in safety precautions because they did a CGI bit as well with the boats at the end.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So I think if I have to pick, unfortunately, it'll be make Donnie Yen fans sad, I guess, but I'm not picking a Donnie Yen fight. I think my favorite is the movie set weapons fight kind of thing, where they switch between all kinds of weapons. It looks like he has some kind of knife that he switches to on one part, where the guy's pole fighting and all this. I think that's the best fight in the movie.
That's with the dude who played Ricky O in the story of Ricky, which
yes.
I almost went to, and then I went, no more prison movies, Kush. And I actually got scared in this movie too. I was like, oh no, I'm seeing stills of a prison fight. Luckily it's only about 8 minutes long, so I felt comfortable with still going to this one. I also like the movie set, but what I liked about the freeway is it's menacing, man. Like, yeah, there's some good stunt choreography happening, but even with those green scenes, like Fang the Killer, when he's spider walking under trucks, just trying to murder Donnie Yen, I was like, this is terrifying. And then ultimately, because the way they ended, it's just like, oh, there's so many empty calories on this, man. What happened?
Yeah, and that's what I mean. If I had to pick number 2, it would be the ending fight bits that, like you said, ultimately turns out to be anticlimactic there. But I do like some of the choreography and stuff in terms of the knees and kicks and things they were doing in it. But ultimately, I'm going with the movie set fight.
You had mentioned that you were afraid that the prison fight might have too many quick, close cuts and stuff like that. I think that happened during the art exhibit. Because I remember seeing like the skeleton set and like, ooh, this is going to be fun. And ultimately it's just so many shots out of sequence. Yeah. And you got to wonder, the American influence, are these people thinking of that stuff doing this, or do they not care about the American market? Somehow I would doubt that's true, because Donnie Yen, most martial art fans in America know who he is, kind of thing. All of his films that are produced, overseas,
all get strong video releases over here and all that kind of stuff. So, you got to wonder, are they catering certain things to the American audience at that point or not? So it makes you think about it.
Again, I'm still fixated on Fang. I like where they were going with him, and I don't know where they necessarily dropped the ball or how they could have dropped the ball with him. I think maybe they rushed his introduction a little too quickly, and then
yeah, well, I mean, nothing really got established very quickly. You know what I mean? I think they could have fleshed out that character a little bit different. I mean, yeah, we mentioned the whole wife thing and all that stuff, but still, there's a lot of flimsy stuff with his character that I thought, man, that part could have been a strength though, and really made him, much like I mentioned, when you get a chance, check out Tiger Claws, because you're going to be like, oh, this is Kung Fu Killer, without the crazy wild Asian choreography and stuff like that. But where Bolo Yan, I feel they do that in that movie. So not so well in this one.
What do you think about Donnie's character? I don't have. I'm just calling him Mo or Donnie.
Right. Yeah, I think it was something different from him. And
Okay.
I think at the time, there's that one part in the fight scene where it's almost like, oh, he's in prison, right? Of course, he's going to be the wrongly accused, or you know what I mean? Not wrongly accused, but he's defending himself or whatever it was, because he was a police officer that killed somebody or something like that.
A martial arts instructor who did work for the police, but
Right.
he's so obsessed with being number one that he just challenged everybody and took it a little too far one day, Len.
Right.
And
Yes, correct. I remember that. And now, right, I do like that the police need his help now and stuff, so they're going to let him get out of prison, even though I guess murdered somebody. But that's a very 80s storyline kind of thing.
Mhm.
Get out this superior martial artist because they're going to help us. So I love the whole 80s vibe of it and stuff like that. So, but I like Donnie Yen in this movie. Again, like I said, he had to be at least 50 some years old in this. So, it's not going to be an all out action fest from Donnie in this kind of thing. But I think fans of his would enjoy it still. I think they'll see him try something different with this character. And I would recommend this one.
There's two females in this. There's Madam Luck, and she's flawed in a way. She's just not a good cop. She does one thing and then she goes, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Like, man, I should just probably put Donnie Yen back in prison. Like she immediately regrets her decision moving forward. But Bing Bai, who plays Sin Ying, were you surprised that turned out to be his wife and not his daughter? Because those two got no chemistry. And when she was pregnant at the group photo, it was like, oh, I didn't realize that was his woman. Oh my God. Like they got nothing between them.
Yeah, they again, like I mentioned earlier, it's a matter of story failing the actors, I think, in that instance. And there's so much things on this, and we see this even in American cinema where there's lack of chemistry between the leads and all this kind of stuff. You got to lean on the director for that kind of stuff too, and you got to wonder who was really leading who throughout this whole process. Does he direct Donnie Yen? Does he let him create his own character? Does he give him direction on what to do? You got to wonder, you know what I mean, in these kinds of movies, how much directing the guy's doing, because this is a perfect example of this. There's no chemistry there. You see it, and when it happens, you're like, oh, I wouldn't have guessed that. But you should, though, because by that point, that direction in character, the development should have kind of been there for something like that. Even though they're not your centerpiece character development moments you would want in an action film, you still got to have something there.
This movie had an estimated budget of 25 million US American dollars. It had a global box office of 24.5 million US dollars. It definitely came in just under the wire. Out of 200 recorded movies in 2014, it came in at 198. 2014's top 5 of that year is Hunger Games 3, Part 1, the first Maleficent, the first Guardians of the Galaxy. I think it's the third Hobbit. And then I believe the fourth Transformers was your top grossing film of 2014.
Yeah, I'd probably rather watch Kung Fu Killer than any of those, to be honest. That's
for sure.
I know there's going to be some Guardians fans out there, but I would still rather watch Kung Fu Killer.
Oh, but that soundtrack, Len, the soundtrack.
Yeah.
This movie made me want to look up more from the director, Teddy Wong. And I also want to check out some more from Wang. He does a series called Detective Chinatown, which actually gets released out here in San Francisco and is always on a day I can't make it.
Huh. So this guy's still a working director then, because if it's one thing I don't do for the show, I just go off of memory on everything and don't really look too much up. So I have no idea what this director does, but he's still a working director, I assume.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, he doesn't do much, but he's got directing projects. He's actually one of the associate producers on Jetley's Black Mask. Do you remember that one?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I thought about doing that one as well, but I was just like, that thing is just, it's like Evil Dead meets Jet Li. I don't know. I remember distinctly a soldier got his hand cut off and then continued to punch Jet Li in the face with his bloody stump.
Well, here's my question to you on this, Kush. I'm very curious on your answer here.
Okay.
You mentioned Jet Li. Why do you think, or just your opinion, why do you think somebody like Jet Li made it to American audiences? He's had several American releases nationwide, and somebody like Donnie Yen doesn't.
Well, Donnie Yen's finally getting his exposure, and he was in the Star Wars movie a couple years back. But Jet Li, I think, crossed over.
No, the difference here, though, is Jet Li, not to interrupt you, but Jet Li is a star. He's starred in several leading man American, from Kiss of the Dragon.
He's got great charisma.
Do you think that's the difference? Do you think that's why he kind of made it and Donnie really hasn't? And I know Donnie's been a side player in bigger things, but not like Jet Li is, who's leading, you're putting him on your poster and things like that. He's your leading man kind of thing.
I think Jet's also had that street cred where he won 10 tournaments 10 years in a row, back to back. And I don't know how much of that has ever been true, but that's always come up in the discussions when we were doing this first tour in the late 90s. Quentin Tarantino was like, you gotta check out this film and you gotta check out that film. Many Jet Li films were on that list, along with the John Woo flicks and Chow Yun Fat. I think it's just Donnie Yen's just part of that second wave now, or maybe even a third wave. But him and folks finally know about Tony Leung because of a Marvel movie.
Because of a Marvel movie, right? Well, I know that apparently Donnie is in the upcoming John Wick, I think. So again, much like I mentioned before, he's going to be a side player in a major film where, the Jackie Chans and the Jet Lis and stuff of the world have headlined, American productions and stuff where Donnie really hasn't. So I'll be curious. I think he'll fit in well. I mean, he's got to be, I should look this up, but I'm guessing Donnie Yen's got to be 60 by now, or really, really close to 60 at this point. So,
Let's see, just real quickly. Donnie Yen, Ha Hao Mao, 1963. So yeah, it's coming up on 60 years. Yeah, 58.
We'll see, because even with being in John Wick and things like that, do you really think it's going to lead to a spin-off where Donnie Yen becomes a leading actor in America's cinema? I'm gonna go out on a limb and say I doubt it.
No, I don't think Tony Leung is gonna. I think Jet Li was just young enough to get that hip hop audience, and that's why we had films like Romeo Must Die.
Yeah.
Oh,
Kiss the Dragon's great.
Kiss the Dragon's a lot of fun. Black Mask, it's still a crazy movie, but for whatever reason, they gave it an American hip hop soundtrack. Let's just put a New York beat behind it, and great soundtrack, FYI.
Because I mean, name if you're looking at Donnie Yen films, what's the best of the best in terms of Donnie Yen works at this point?
Hero, he was in Hero. He was in Iron Monkey. Iron Monkey did some time on the screens out here. Yeah,
and then what was it?
But that was also 20 years ago. Ip Man, everyone loves Ip Man.
Ip Man. So I think
most even has a good sequel.
I was going to say, I think most people that are into martial arts that are listening to the show probably would pick the Ip Man. I would say Iron Monkey's his best film, but I bet those are in the conversations. Right, Iron Monkey did do some time on the screen here.
That was a Weinstein distribution. He did a bunch of those. So let's see. The art exhibit, that should have been better than it was. The tattoo shop, I wish was better. But
There was
the
some
movie
cool
set,
stuff.
tattoo shop just was, it was a fun environment. The phone booth, that's a fish tank.
Yeah.
And then, actually, speaking about, so at one point, Wang pushes his opponent's head.
Yes.
Wong Shit is the gentleman's name, or the character's name. Wong Shit, CHIT. And how many? What is that, man? It's like 60 frames per second, 120 frames per second. Because that water looks just so. It's not CGI, man, but it is just the most beautiful slow-mo shot I've seen in a while.
Yeah, I think the tattoo thing, they left some stuff on the table only because it seems more like less a martial art fight and more they're just throwing each other around kind of thing. I like the visuals in that scene a lot. Yeah, right. The slow-mo tank thing is awesome. Yeah, I think it's there's a lot of creativity in this one, but right, going in, it's almost like they're trying to pull the rug out from under you, though, if you think you're going in Seven mixed with a martial art movie or whatever it is. I don't get that vibe. I don't get that vibe at all. So.
Well, there's 7 opponents, Len. 7 deadly sins.
Yeah. No.
7.
No. I don't get none of that. So, but it reminds me of the tricks that other low budget films would pull back in the 90s and stuff, where you put the hot female on the cover that's not even in the movie or something. It's an old AIP trick kind of thing. Put the cool looking monster on the cover and he's really not in the movie or looks nothing like on the poster kind of thing. So it's an old trick, but the 7 people looking for a gritty psychological martial art film. Does one exist? I don't think they're going to get that from this, but I do think it's an entertaining movie that's worth watching.
So we both agree this is a fun film. You should definitely check it out. What is another movie you would recommend, Len?
Tiger Claws, absolutely Tiger Claws. Just because of the parallels it has to a movie like this. And again, the choreography in the martial arts stuff in Tiger Claws is very what you would expect out of the Cynthia Rothrock movies. It's she's not going to have those Lady Dragon style fight scenes and stuff because that's really not an American produced movie kind of thing. But so the choreography is much different as it's not that mass chaos kind of stuff like we get out of the prison fight right at the beginning of this movie. You don't have the fun visuals of the tattoo fights or the movie set one either. So the fights are going to be less visually impressive kind of thing, much to be expected in the time like I said, it's more of a Canadian picture, Tiger Claws, than it is a US picture, which I think MCA Universal did pick up. But I think so because of the storyline. It's fun to see Bolo Yen. I think there is a storyline connection with a movie like Kung Fu Killer. So I guess I would pick that one. If I have to pick a Donnie Yen one, I would definitely say probably those that are watching the show have probably seen it already, but I think the must-watch Donnie Yen movie is Iron Monkey.
That's what's up. I myself am going to recommend Ricky-O, the story of Ricky. Check that out. It's just balls to the wall insanity. I believe it was based on a comic book. At least that's what I got out of the credits.
Yeah, I've got some friends that are big fans of that movie. So.
It's fantastic. It never gets old. It's enhanced with each viewing, and that's what I would recommend to you. Len, what do you want to plug this week of October 27th?
Really, I would just say now, as I'm wrapping up Pact of Vengeance, anybody that's interested in it, I would just really say, please take a gander at my Patreon page at patreon.com/KillerWolfFilms. You'll get my movies on there that you can watch whenever you want. A lot of them are downloads now that you can keep in your video libraries and watch when you want. There's tons of behind the scenes pictures and stills and stuff from Pact of Vengeance. So it's really the best way to support artists in this day and age is kind of cut out the evil empire that is most distributors these days. So Patreon will take their cut out of what I make, but at the same time, that's really a good way to support me for $2 a month kind of thing. Jump on the Patreon and check it out. So thanks.
And guys, check out the Waffle Box. That's a non-BosNet project, but a lot of fun nonetheless. Mike Fish and myself. We talk about everything and nothing at all. And then check out Microdoses. Those are every Friday. On both projects are available on the BosNet, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, everywhere you want to find your podcast in whatever form you prefer your podcast. Guys, our next episode, Kick-Ass Movie Podcast number 6, the season finale for the year, is coming out December 29th, New Year's week. And we're going to watch a little film called The Best of the Best. We've been leading up to this. I'm going to try and get the entire family in on this episode. So be prepared for a large round table. But best case scenario, you're going to hear us talking about Best of the Best. James Earl Jones, Eric Roberts.
Let's not forget Chris Penn, R.I.P. John Dye, R.I.P. We've got Sally Kirkland, who was still a very nice-looking woman back then. You mentioned James Earl Jones, Eric Roberts. I want to say his mom in the film is Louise Fletcher, maybe. James Liu is on the Korean team there, who's been in tons of movies throughout his career. So we got James Liu. We've got Philip Ray, who went on to do Best of the Best 2 and 3, and I believe his brother is Dae-han in the movie. His brother in real life is Dae-han in the film.
Powerful Dae-han.
So lots of fun stuff. Best of the Best, one of my favorites. It's got one of my favorite endings, which we won't go into now. But yes, I'm very, very excited to do the finale for the year. So I'm just going to keep my mouth shut because that's one I can talk about for a while.
What's up? For Len Kabazinski, I've been Kush Hayes. You've been you.
Good night, everybody. This the Kick-Ass Movie Podcast. We're here to kick ass. If you with the kung fu, then this your podcast. No brakes, all gas. This the Kick-Ass Movie Podcast.
From the BosNet family.